Regeneration in Brent is a huge topic. And whilst we as the council set the policy framework for the built environment in the borough, we are not responsible for a lot of the build itself and a lot of the construction, actually most of the construction and build ourselves. We set the direction about what we want private developments to bring, what we want the council's housing teams to bring and the capital programme to bring forward. And it's an incredibly broad and big area to cover, hence why the report is fairly high level on most things. And we're constantly reviewing and learning about how we approach regeneration, how we approach planning policy, how we also approach growth in the borough that isn't just housing. You know, regeneration, I need to stress, it isn't just housing that we're looking to deliver in the borough. And I'm happy to talk to any particular question or any particular theme that the committee want to explore further, and happy to give more information subsequently to the committee tonight. I think it's really important as well that the committee and those watching online understand the financial context of house building, particularly in the UK and acutely in London. It has never been more difficult to build homes in our capital city than it is currently. And I can say this as the political lead, the kamikaze budget of 2 years ago has sent interest rates skyrocketing. Brexit has meant that we have a massive shortage of labour. Construction costs are going through the roof. Building at this time is harder than it's ever been before. And planning committee also really well aware of this, which has impacted the viability of both council schemes and also private schemes coming forward, and what we can deliver. Brent is one of the 5 largest house builders in London, and that's a record that we are proud of. And we're also one of the biggest collectors in community infrastructure levy and delivering infrastructure alongside that. But it's not to say that my counterparts and myself across London, Councillor Knight and her counterparts across London, are really grappling with the impact of viability on all schemes and how we finance and fund house building, both private and especially public and social housing.
Thank you, Chair. Most of what I say is mainly about South Kilburn, but I think many of the issues apply to other schemes as well. I think what's in the documents in front of you doesn't really address the problems as they now exist. Especially, I mean, it mentions the master plan of 2017, and I would remind people that South Kilburn regeneration has been going on for 20 years, not 7. But a lot has changed in that time, and particularly in the current situation. What in various documents about the scheme in South Kilburn, in virtually every document it talks about the construction that's underway, less than 50% social housing is being built, which is below what Brent said from the start. And there is talk of viability going down to 20 to 30% social housing. That means that Brent will not fulfil its commitment to residents in South Kilburn about new homes and staying in South Kilburn, nor will it fulfil its commitment it made in the 2019 ballot to temporary tenants to get secure tenancies. So there's a major problem there in terms of fulfilling what Brent's promises are. The other issue is the quality of what's being built. It's not just that Granville New Homes is going to cost more to put right than it cost in the first place, and Merle Court very similar. Virtually every block that's been built since regeneration in the last 20 years has had major faults around cladding, mould, heating problems, and so on. You have a block which had emergency heating for 2 years. You have Swift Court on Albert Road, which had scaffold up for 2 years while cladding was removed. Scaffolding went, and now they're swathed in scaffolding again. We really shouldn't be putting residents through that. Oh, okay. Very last point is on delivery and information to residents. The Carlton Vale Boulevard was supposed to be finished last summer. Nobody's heard of Dicky Bird. And similarly with the health centre, which was promised from the very start of the regeneration, should have been built, I think 7 or 8 years ago. We hear nothing.
South Kilburn promise is social rent. It's not London affordable rent. It's not London living rent. The South Kilburn promise is social rent. And to date, we have delivered 60% of social housing rental homes in South Kilburn. And we will make good on our promise on the South Kilburn master plan. And that is something that we will, including the school, including the medical centre, which actually the shell and core of the medical centre will be done by the end of May, with the ambition of opening completely to residents by this time next year. And that's a promise in terms of infrastructure that we will guarantee. The Carlton Boulevard still is on. We are looking to kind of how we fund that one, but that's still an ambition that we want to we will deliver improvements to the park, improvements to the green spaces, as well as the social rental homes. With the Wembley housing zone, we didn't own the land. We had to purchase the land. So that impacts viability as well. And we are looking at kind of how we deal with the affordable housing on scheme. Ideally, we'd want to deliver 100% social housing on any of our land and schemes. But the reality is that some of our schemes, we will not be able to deliver fully social rent homes on particular schemes. And we are looking, and I know Councillor Knight presented a paper at Cabinet a few months back about looking at the impact of viability on our council schemes as well. Some of them will have to reorder, some of them will have to pause and look at the numbers. Some of the schemes we've had to inject some more money, having conversations with the GLA about grant funding, about whether we can up some of the grant funding to enable the schemes to come forward. So we are doing everything actively possible to continue house building at social rent levels. But I want to stress, and I will continue to stress, that the housing crisis isn't going to be solved just by building social housing. We have to be building all tenures of housing, because every housing tenure it's a crucial part of the supply and demand issues at the moment that we're getting in Brent and across London.
So the new units in South Kilburn, in your assertion just now, you stated that some would be at social rent level. It's my belief, my understanding, that they're all at London affordable rent level. Can you confirm that, please?
No, they're all social rent in South Kilburn. That's our landlord promise.
So they're all at social rent level. The new units, just for absolute clarity, the new units in South Kilburn are all at social rent level.
Artica?
Yes, all social rent that is being built is at social rent levels.
Okay, so the information that I have contradicts that. So maybe it's something I can provide
Yeah.
to you, and we can make the committee aware of that after as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
My role's up, but I'm wondering if the discrepancy is between decanted tenants and new tenants.
The commitment and the ambition and the aspiration is there for us to continue building. We may have to reorder how we do schemes. We might have to look at whether we do more intermediate products rather than full social rent products in some of our schemes to enable the viability to come forward on schemes forward. But in specific schemes where we've got them listed, you'd have to kind of speak to Councillor Knight about what works and what doesn't work, because the picture is ever changing.
Okay, I would link it to my first point about, do we need to rethink our strategy around regen and Brent? So for example, is this going to mean that we might start looking at refurbishment instead of replacement? Does it mean that actually there are areas where we had a strategy of pulling down old blocks and rebuilding them, and that's not a financially good option anymore?
No, because the schemes that we were on, from memory from Councillor Knight's area about the affordable housing programme, are predicated on their mainly infill sites. So existing buildings wouldn't be affected. These are actually new builds.
If I can come back to our speaker and just ask for 2 points. It's not even going to be 2 minutes, just 2 points on outstanding elements that you would like to see scrutiny looking at in the future from tonight's conversation.
Okay, quickly on the quality issue, I mean, I'm glad it finally got addressed, but one question I would ask is, why are we using builders who have previously built box buildings? So why are the builders who built Granville New Homes, which is costing more to put right than it cost in the first place, being used for further regeneration schemes in South Kilburn? That's a quality question. On the viability, I'm still not convinced that we're saying that for the whole of the South Kilburn regeneration scheme, so that's beyond Hereford and Exeter, it's Austin, Dickens, etc., are we guaranteeing that we will keep the pledges that we made to residents? And as a slight aside, bear in mind that when we pass over housing to housing associations, the service charges go through the roof. So they are no longer paying what council tenants would be paying, but far more. Very last point, I don't understand on the infrastructure thing. There is no public library in South Kilburn and never has been. And far from an increase in community centres, we're actually seeing a decrease in community facilities because unlike the council who did have communal rooms in their blocks, the developers are not putting communal rooms in their blocks. So we're seeing a decrease in communal facilities.
Thank you. That's really helpful. So
Just to be
pick up
clear,
on
I
the-
didn't say the public library in South Kilburn, I was talking about Preston.
okay, but you did say in South Kilburn, but it's fine. My position has always been that local authorities are actually the strong partner, are actually the strong partner in building and delivering large housing scale programs in London, because look around us, as you said, it's so expensive to build. The only people who are invested in actually really wanting to build housing and large housing schemes are local authorities and our government infrastructure schemes. If a construction company, if a developer wants to build something, they need us and our plans as much as we need them. If I feel like, you know, ways that we can address some of those issues around building standards and around viability is we could just say no. Like, you know, Jerry, you said, oh, well, you know, if we can't lose the project altogether. I would say, let's start saying no to developers and see where else they go. And the thing is that the concern that they will go to other local authorities, we need to start working across London together. This isn't a Brent specific issue. This is an issue across London. It's across the UK. We need to be working. What I would want our cabinet members to do, as you spoke about, Shama, is your work lobbying for legislation and lobbying at the GLA for us to work better together to a higher standard. I would want to see all our London authorities working together to back each other up in saying we're all going to hold to these standards, we're all going to demand higher building standards, and we're all going to demand for those higher levels of affordable housing in our programs, and we're going to try and stop you from undercutting us and pitching us against each other. But it's a lobbying request for you to push to try and see, can we get our other London colleagues to sign up with us to be more robust in our negotiations with developers, and to not feel like we're the ones going cap in hand to them. They're the ones that need to come to us.
So I think what I will say to that is there is a regional body across London, which is the GLA. GLA have a planning and regeneration team, and every big scheme goes through them. And strategically, they will help us deliver infrastructure and housing. And it's their policy requirements in the London plan that our local plan mirrors, and most local plans in London are coming to or will mirror the London plan. So there will be consistency across the piece. What I will say, and this is obviously a political conversation that I think all parties are grappling with, the option of saying no to development isn't there. The housing crisis is so acute that we need housing. There are people in all income levels that are struggling to get into London, and we need people, because the social impact of not building housing means that primary schools are closing in neighbouring boroughs. So we actively need to think about, if we're realistically going to tackle the housing crisis, supply is the point. And I will challenge anybody to say that we don't challenge developers. Mo and I have conversations day in, day out with developers about what our red lines are. And this is why we often get criticised about having too many high blocks. I will have high blocks if it means that we're getting as much affordable housing, any scheme possible.
Right.
So I will challenge that. But
And
I will continue to lobby with my counterparts on legislative change that will enable us to do more.
thank you very much, because like I said, they're recommendations, not ongoing questions. And as per your point, I think our thing is the good work that might be happening is for us to push for more, because, you know, we will always want to see more. If you get us 50%, we're going to want to see 60%. My feeling seems very strongly from tonight's committee that this committee, and I think backbenchers in this council and residents in this council, we want as much affordable housing as possible. So whatever you bring back to us, we're going to always ask for the extra 10%.
Keep doing that. It's good scrutiny.
I just want to just on the point about saying no, that the planning committee has a constitutional role within the council, And obviously they have the ability to weigh up schemes, and they do say no.